Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5 Minutes Podcast. Today, I like to talk about the Spotify model. Of course, when I start saying Spotify model, it seems that there is a methodology or a process. No. What happened is that Spotify built a unique culture, a unique approach to decide and manage the workload. So if I can explain a little bit about the history of this model, everything started with Scrum. So they started applying Scrum, creating the Scrum teams, the persona of the Scrum Master, and then they start releasing features of Spotify. So the playlist, a search engine, and they started to grow, and they grew very fast, as we all know. So what happened with the growth? The process that they have defined, it started to become extremely cumbersome and bureaucratic. And then they said, look, Scrum is not enough for us. We need to go one step above and beyond and talk about agility. And they said one key thing, it's agility matter more than Scrum. And this is extremely related to the podcast I recorded a couple of weeks ago, talking about agility and agile methods. Agile method is an answer to a need of agility, but you can be agile using whatever you want. And Spotify said, look, I need to create a solution that solves my own problem. So I need to tailor an agile process that is able to shape the culture of Spotify and answer the challenges we are facing. And then they basically reframed the concept of Scrum to fit their need. So they started moving from Scrum Master to what they call Agile Coach. Scrum teams to squads. And a squad became the master rule of the work on the Spotify method. What is a squad? A squad is a small team, usually around 6, 7, 8 people. And this team is a self-organized team. So it's a team that works together with a very strong sense of autonomy. And this is a key aspect. They have a long-term mission and they decide what to do. I will talk more about that in the part 2 of this podcast, but they decide. So basically the root is that the squad is like an independent organization that is responsible for one part of the long-term mission or the product strategy of Spotify. So this motivates them and this increases their ability to deliver fast. To deliver very, very fast because there is no committee to approve, there is nothing. So this squad is a self-sustainable team. They are extremely aligned with the general goal, but they have the independent to work in different processes. So for example, they can use Kanban, they can use Scrum, they can use whatever, they can use burn rate. So that each squad decide what is the best way of working. So basically, one of the key questions I had when I saw this for the first time is that, okay, but how do you manage hundreds of these squads? It will not be one squad going to one direction, the other going. How do they connect? So how do they connect? And then it's a very important aspect. They have freedom to do almost everything. However, they are extremely aligned with the product strategy and the strategy of Spotify. So each of them take care of one feature, of one set of features. And this is how they build this autonomy. It's like a group of several startup organizations inside this Spotify ecosystem. And this is their model. And why I want to wrap up this part 1 of this podcast with that? Because I'm not here talking that, Spotify is the model that everybody should follow. No, Spotify is the perfect model for Spotify. And you need to identify what is your model. And Spotify made public their approach to software development and product development. That can be very helpful for us, and it can provide several insights like decoupling, like building features in an independent way, creating common interfaces that will allow you to have different squads working at different timelines and different time frames. So what we will do in the next episode, we'll talk about this concept of alignment and autonomy. That is a very important point. So how do they manage an environment with no methodology or no system? They built everything almost independently. So how do they build this trust around that? And finally, on part 3, we will talk about failure because, of course, on this balance, you are balancing chaos and bureaucracy. So what is the minimum level of bureaucracy to not drag you to the chaos, but at the same time, keep you with a completely agile mindset? And this is what we'll see next week and the week after on this series about the Spotify model. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and see you next week with another 5 minutes podcast.